Yeah, hi friends, it's time to start now. So let's get going with the streaming. So I just wanted to share my thoughts around what is going on currently. Of course, we are all rattled with what has happened in yesterday. We heard about the death of Sushant Singh Rajput, a very famous celebrity, a very famous actor, and it came as a shock to all of us. So I thought, let me just go live today on FB and share my thoughts and my little experience around how what would have gone wrong possibly, and how do we ensure that something like this never happens again. So I'll be trying and answering a few questions in this chat. The first question which I would want to actually take up or answer is what really went wrong. Everything was right in his life. We saw him as a celebrity, as somebody who was doing really, really well in his career. He was at the top of his career, and in a fraternity, a framework which is full of nepotism. He was one of those few celebrities who had made his way without any support. So, what really went wrong for him? So, here let me share. I'm just speculating here, but let me try and share with you what I have gathered out of similar professionals from the film industry and the media industry whom I had the opportunity to counsel. I have a lot of clients from that particular industry. So there are, according to me, there were 4 or 5 things which typically would have gone wrong for him. One thing which I have observed in this industry are that these people are very lonely while they are living in the crowd. Yes, they may be living in a crowd. They are celebrities, so they have so much of fan following. Wherever they go, there are thousands of people kind of around them. But having said that, they are still very lonely. So when I counsel these kind of people from the film industry, I realize that they want to share, they want to talk, and honestly, they have nobody around them, nobody close around them with whom they can actually be sharing their thoughts. So that's the paradox of their life. While they are around so many people all the while, there are very few people who are actually there for them. So they are lonely while they are in the crowd. And my only advice to them is that you should try and have a few close friends amongst the so many people who are following you. Few people you should build relationships who are good enough for you to go and share your thoughts with, who are there by your side, who are there to support you in your hour of need. So unfortunately today they are living in this dual faced world, where on one side they are celebrities, they are doing so well in life. On the other hand, they really don't have anybody whom they can share their thoughts with. So that's the first problem which these people generally face. They have nobody really close enough or good enough in whom they can confide when they are in trouble. The second problem which plagues this particular industry is that all these people, the relationships that they enter into, we hear so many Bollywood tie-ups on a regular basis. These are all very flimsy relationships. So we may see them going as girlfriend and boyfriend, but really there's very little between them on a relationship level other than the bodily connect. So even if they are committed in a relationship, that is not good enough for them to actually share their views or their thoughts, or have a support system which is strong enough for them to fall back on whenever they are in trouble. And they are always fearful of sharing. Today she is my girlfriend, tomorrow I may break up with her and she should not be knowing my secrets. So again, here, while they are with people, they are still alone. So first they are alone amongst the crowd. Second, their flimsy relationships which actually do not help them share their thoughts or share their grief with people. Third is, these people are generally financially insecure. So we may see them as celebrities, we may see them as stars who are doing so well, who are charging crores of rupees to do a film. I get a lot of TV serial celebrities also as my clients. I handle some of them. So while they are famous, while they are earning well when they are on the job, once they have completed a film or once they have completed a serial, they really don't know when next will they actually be getting a break, or they will actually be getting their next film, or they would be getting their next serial. So they are always insecure in that sense. They may make big money in one film, but again they may just go dry for the next couple of years or till they find the next opportunity. So that also somewhere pinches them. And these people are always over leveraged. So they may earn X and they will buy a house which is worth 5X. He may probably be making, let's say, 5 crores a movie, and he may buy a house which is worth 20 crores. So suddenly now he has to do 4 more films so that he can afford that particular house. And when the money dries up, then there is a big problem. So that's the third point, financial insecurity, which often kind of leads these kind of film stars and celebrities to do something which is not correct. Fourth is that even if they are successful, there is no guarantee that they will continue to be successful. Two flop films or one flop serial and you are out of business. Recently we heard about another TV celebrity called Ashish Roy, who was hospitalized in a leading hospital in Mumbai, and he does not have the money to fund his dialysis treatment and kidney transplant, which he very badly needs. And he's a very famous actor, so to say. Today he is looking at crowdfunding so that he can have money to do his kidney transplant. So there is no guarantee that they shall survive or they shall succeed, continue to succeed the way they are doing as of today. And last but not the least, the biggest problem which is haunting this fraternity is substance abuse. So they are into all kinds of addictions, and the harm which substance abuse does to their body is second to none. So it's like that's one thing which is kind of ruining this particular fraternity. So in fact you will be shocked to note that approximately 50 to 60% people in the film industry and the media industry and people associated with the allied industry like musicians or the cameramen, cinematographers, etc., they are all passing through a kind of turmoil or a difficult situation, and they are always kind of grappling. So this particular industry needs a lot of support, needs a lot of help, needs a lot of guidance. I try and do my best wherever I can. So probably it was a mixture of all these factors which would have led to what we saw happen yesterday. So just to kind of summarize, if I have to give those 5 points why I thought something like this happens in this industry: one, they are lonely while they are in the crowd. Second, they have flimsy relationships with their girlfriends and boyfriends which are not lifelong or which are not long lasting enough for them to be feeling secure and sharing. Third, they are financially highly insecure all the while. A success one movie or one serial does not guarantee them success in future. Fourth, there is no guarantee that they will continue to be successful for the rest of their life or rest of their careers simply because they are a celebrity or a star today. And last but not the least, substance abuse. So probably one or more of these factors is what would have led our dear friend to be doing what he actually ended up doing. So my suggestion to, if there is anybody from the film industry or the media industry who's listening to this particular live chat, my suggestion to them would be that number one, and this is what I also counsel them when they come to me for guidance and advice, is to invest your money wisely when the sun is shining bright. Don't waste your money, don't splurge your money on things which is not necessary. Make your house, make your home, secure yourself, have your investments in place so that later on in life, even if you are out of work or do not have sufficient work, you are not struggling. Secondly, it's good to lead a lavish lifestyle to suit the celebrity status that you have, but let your lifestyle be commensurate to the amount of earning that you are currently having or the earning that you shall have in future. That's my second advice to people from this industry. Third, avoid substance abuse. This industry is plagued with substance abuse. Most of them are heavily into drinks, into various narcotic substances, and that is doing a tremendous harm on their body as also their mind. It takes away, snatches away all their rationality. Fourth, I would advise them to seek the help of a coach whenever they are in trouble, and if they are not having friends whom they can confide in, at least go to a professional coach or professional counselor and seek help from them whenever you are in trouble. In fact, I also suggest to them that you people should try and make friends outside your film industry. So generally these people mingle around with amongst themselves. They have their own circle within the film industry, and they try to, or the media industry, and they try to live within that circle. It's very important for them to venture out, have non-filmy people as their friends as well, so that they can get genuine guidance when they are in trouble. I also advise them to be more genuine. Most of them are having a mask on their face all the while. You see these celebrities, you love them, you admire them for whatever they are doing, but in real life they are a stark contrast of what they are portraying themselves on the screen. So this managing this dual life also sometimes becomes a challenge for them. So that's also one of my advice to them: try to be more genuine and more honest in your commitment. Since yesterday I have been seeing the Facebook and media being flooded with messages which say that we are there to support you, please come, and if you have a problem, come and talk to us. Everybody is putting up these kind of messages, but the sad part is, when I talk to people from the film industry, when these people come to me for advice, they say, we have sent messages, we have done calls to so many of our friends, and Surajit, you won't believe, they don't reply our messages, they don't pick up our calls. When we are in trouble, they are not there. When they have to party with us, when they have to use our celebrity status, they are there for us. But when we need their help, when we need their support, when we need a shoulder to cry on, we find none. So they have to find genuine friends, so that they are finding support whenever they are in trouble. And last but not the least, my advice to them is to change their lifestyle and do yoga, meditation and exercises regularly, so that the stress levels which they are otherwise going through reduces to some extent. So these are few things which people from the film industry and the media industry could do to ensure that something like Sushant Singh Rajput does not happen ever again. The next question which I would want to typically answer is, what is the reason for mental illness or psychiatric troubles or depression and things like these becoming so rampant in modern times? So if you look at the last 2 decades, there has been a kind of spike in cases of depression, mental illness. We are hearing these kind of things like never before. Every second day you read the newspaper, forget celebrities, forget film stars, even amongst the common people you see cases of suicide in the newspaper, person killing his own family, everybody dying together, taking life together of the whole family. So this is all very disturbing, and people often ask me this question: why this spike in the last 1 or 2 decades? So well, for this I see three clear reasons, or three clear causes for this kind of a spike happening in mental illness in the last 2 decades. The first one is rising competition. So today we are the second most populated country in the world, and every year we are churning out lakhs and lakhs of engineers, doctors, chartered accountants. I was just doing a Google search and I figured out that in calendar year 2019 we had close to 20 lakh engineers being added to the country. So 20 lakh students qualified as engineers in 2019. Now, do we have 20 lakh new jobs in 2019 for those 20 lakh engineers? The answer is a big fat no. So today we are living in a time where there is tremendous competition, excessive competition. For every one vacancy which exists, there are 100 people lining up for that particular job. This competition, this rising competition, this problem of plenty that we are living in is giving a job to one and leaving the 99 others hungry. And that, according to me, is one of the primary reasons for depression and other psychiatric troubles to be surfacing, especially in the younger generation. So number one, I would blame the rising competition for this current situation. Number two, I would also blame this quest for more amongst people. Today, everybody whom I meet, everybody whom I see, I see different kinds of clients at work who come to me for counseling. Everybody wants to succeed. Everybody wants to be number one. So if I have a businessman coming and sitting in front of me, he wants to be the number one businessman in the country. If I have an office goer sitting in front of me for counseling, he wants to reach the top position in his organization in the shortest possible period. So suddenly that quest for more and suddenly that race to be number one has kind of started like never before. Everybody wants to be first. But the short point is, in a class of 50 students, we have all been in school, we would have had 30, 40, 50 students in the class. In a class of 50 students, somebody will come first and somebody will come last. Somebody has to come 50th in the class, somebody has to come first in the class. In our school, the marks differentiate the first from the 50th, but in real life there are no marks. So in real life everybody thinks he can come first, but in this race somebody will come first, somebody will come second, somebody will come third, somebody will come 50th, somebody will come 100. We need to accept this reality. Not everybody can have that number one position, but suddenly there has been a spike in the mindset of people. Everybody wants that number one position, and that is what is leading to all these kind of depression and similar problems. The moment there is disappointment sinking in, it is going to lead to some kind of psychiatric trouble. So that's reason number two. One, rising competition. Second, the quest for being number one. Everybody wants to be number one. The third reason that I feel has resulted in spike in mental illness and these kind of cases is the use of technology, rising technology. In fact, technology has helped mankind in many ways, but it has also kind of it has its own demerits as well. Two major demerits of technology which I see: number one, it has taken away business and it has taken away jobs. So a lot of things is now happening with technology. So a few years back, 15-20 years back, if I was sick, I had to compulsorily go to a doctor for medication. Today if I am sick, I don't go to a doctor, I go to a doctor whose name is Dr. Google. Immediately I search for medicines and I have healed myself. So doctors have lost their practice, chartered accountants have lost their work, lawyers have lost their work, because Google practically answers all our questions. So technology, while it has helped, it is always a double-edged sword. It has taken away a lot of jobs and lot of business. Likewise, technology has also exposed us to a very kind of a very unnatural or artificial world which actually does not exist. So today, thanks to social media, everybody's life has become like an open book. I buy a car, I am immediately putting pictures on Instagram, on Facebook. I go for a foreign trip, I am immediately putting pictures there. And when you are seeing the life of other people, when you are peeping into the life of other people on the social media platform, and you see the good things in their life, suddenly that urge to compete, suddenly that urge to reach that particular level strikes within us. Now the sad part over here is that while we are seeing good things about our friends' life on Facebook or Instagram, let's accept and appreciate the fact that they are as sad, or as they are facing as difficult a life as we are also facing, we are also going through. Their life is not only about roses, their roses also have thorns, like the thorns in our life. So when they have a fight in their home, they are not going to go Facebook live to cover that particular fight. They are only going to put their car pictures on the screen on Facebook. So they are only showing the good things of their life like you people do. When you have something good, you show it on the social media platform. You don't show the ugly things or the nasty things of your life over there. Likewise, others are also doing the same, but unfortunately we are blinded. We only try to see the good things in other people's life, feel jealous about it, try to compete, and that competition is again leading to a lot of psychiatric and mental problems. The moment I feel defeated, the moment I feel I have not achieved something commensurate to what I had cast expectations for, immediately I move into a shell of depression. So these are all things which, according to me, are causing this spike in health, in psychiatric and mental ailments, especially depression, in the last 2 decades. So if I have to sum it up, to list the 3 points once again: one is rising competition like never before. Second, the quest for more and the quest to succeed and be number one. Everybody wants to be number one in life, nobody wants to be number two. And third, technology. These 3 factors together cumulatively are ensuring that we are plagued with psychiatric and mental problems. We need to know how to handle these kind of factors in our life. Very, very important. The third question which I would want to kind of answer is What is my experience vis-a-vis the clients whom I counsel? What are the kind of clients I typically get? Are people really seeking help of a counselor and a psychiatrist when they are mentally ill? So here let me start with some glaring statistics first, and these are not statistics built by me. These are statistics which cover the reality. These are statistics which have been done by institutes, and I'm just sharing it with you. So as per one of the statistics done by a reputed organization, approximately 17% of urban India is mentally ill or nearly mentally ill. Can you believe it? 17% of urban India, 1 7, meaning 1 in 5 people in urban India is either already suffering from a mental ailment, a psychiatric ailment, or is on the brink of suffering from it. So yes, the situation is grim as of today, and like any other ailment, a mental ailment or a psychiatric ailment also needs due redressal at the right time. If you have a heart attack, you will immediately go to a doctor, and whatever corrective measure is required, maybe an angioplasty or maybe a bypass, whatever is required, you will get it done and ensure that you are resolving that problem. Same is the case with a psychiatric trouble. You need to visit the doctor and visit the counselor at the right time. So I typically, if I have to list down the kind of clients whom I handle in the course of my work, I would classify them into 4 baskets. One is people who are into business or entrepreneurs. Second is people who are office goers. I get a lot of clients nowadays who are office goers and are plagued with problems at office. Third is housewives, especially educated housewives who have given up on their education and careers for the sake of their family and their children. And fourth, last but not the least, in fact the most important, children. So these are the 4 brackets of clients I am regularly kind of counseling in the course of my work. So entrepreneurs typically, so you may be interested in knowing what are the kind of problems which they face and what is leading to troubles in their life. So typically entrepreneurs who come to me are people who have either over leveraged themselves, they have taken huge loans. All these entrepreneurs are extremely bullish about their business. They forget that they are living in a geography like India, where 85% businesses close down, new ventures close down within the first 3 years of operation. But every entrepreneur is extremely bullish. He wants to become the next Dhirubhai Ambani of the country, and he gets over leveraged. He will take excessive loans, and suddenly he falls into a deep pit. And then, realizing that he is in financial trouble, he is in a deep pit. That's where they get into depression and they run to counselors and doctors, and then the whole chain of things. Also, many of them, infidelity is a very major problem which I see in people in the age group of 35 to 60. They want to venture beyond the sanctity of marriage, which destiny has carved out for them, and they want to flirt around and do things outside, and then suddenly when they are in trouble, they kind of get into depression, and then they need support to rehabilitate them. So typically entrepreneurs come to me either because they are faced with their business has collapsed and they are faced with a financial crisis, or they are into extramarital affairs, and all of this has led them into depression. The typical diseases that we see in entrepreneurs is either basic depression, or some of them are also into an advanced stage of depression, which is also known as schizophrenia. Some of them are into psychosis. Some of them are having a disease which is known as bipolar disorder. So we see different kinds of diseases in the entrepreneurial class. And if there is an entrepreneur who's currently listening to this particular live chat, my advice to all of them is, number one, if you are an entrepreneur, know your limits. Try to leverage yourself, try to take loans and try to have borrowings only to the extent you and your business can afford. If you are worth 5 crores, don't take liabilities on your head worth 50 crores or 500 crores. 5 crores is your limit. Know your limit and live within that. So one is leveraging well, knowing your limits and not crossing your limits in your business. That's number one. Second, avoid infidelity and substance abuse. Even in entrepreneurs, I've seen a lot of substance abuse, especially many of them are into liquor, drinking. Drinking has now become like a habit in our country, and they are into excessive drinking, and that also ruins their life. So avoiding infidelity and substance abuse, that's my second advice to them. Third, save hay for the rainy day. Every entrepreneur has his high in life. Whenever you have a high in life, my advice to these people is save your money in that good year when you have made bumper profits, when you have made super profits. Go to a good investment advisor and ensure that you are investing your money in the right place. Today, most of us are investing into real estate. Real estate may not be the right investment to make. There are so many other avenues available which can multiply your money and give you good returns. So very important when you are doing well in your business to ensure that you are saving hay for the rainy day. You are pulling out some of your profits and investing it wisely so that in your times of trouble that money can come to your rescue. The fourth advice which I give to them is, whenever you are in trouble, whenever you see the water going above your head, you know you are into depression, ensure that you are seeking immediate help of a counselor and a psychiatrist if need be. Do not delay taking medical help. And last but not the least, my advice to all the entrepreneurs is you should regularly do yoga, meditation, and exercises to keep yourself physically and mentally fit. So in a nutshell, if I have to sum up my suggestions for entrepreneurs, number one, know how to manage your money well. Second, avoid infidelity and substance abuse. Three, ensure that you are saving hay for the rainy day. You are saving money while you are doing good in your business. Fourth, seek counseling help and psychiatric help whenever there is a need, whenever you are in trouble and you can't cope up or you can't face that particular challenge. Also have good friends around you who can advise you in your times of trouble. And last but not the least, doing yoga, meditation, and regular exercises. Now coming to the second class of people who regularly come to me for advice, that is salaried class, the corporate people who are having their jobs. Now these people typically have different kinds of problem which they are faced with. Some are faced with job stress, long working hours. Some are faced with bad bosses. Some are faced with lack of growth while at work. Some people are having delayed promotion. Some, in fact, nowadays I get lots of cases of sexual harassment at work. And when we talk about sexual harassment, we think sexual harassment means a male harassing a female. That's our understanding of sexual harassment. Sorry, gone are the days where sexual harassment was only restricted to a male harassing a female. Nowadays, I get complaints of all possible permutations and combinations. I get complaints of females harassing males with false allegations. I get complaints of males harassing males. I get complaints of females harassing females. So all possible combinations are today seen, and sexual harassment at work is also a very, very important reason why I see troubled people sitting in front of me today. So yes, there are a lot of causes amongst the office goers also today to seek counseling help. But the good thing that I now see is that people have realized that when in trouble, please go and seek help, because they know this is confidential, this is going to remain confidential, and seeking help is only going to help me bail myself out of that crisis. And let me also share with you that most of the corporate guys whom I have advised, they have come back to me within 2 to 3 months and said that they were rid of their problem. They were thankful to me that they came to me at the right time, discussed with me, brainstormed with me. I gave them a few suggestions, a few corrective measures from my side, and their problem was resolved. So for all corporate guys, if there is anybody from the corporate sector, and I know there are plenty of them who are listening to this live streaming, my advice to them would be, number one, learn to stay calm. Very important to stay calm while at work. And end of the day, please understand, you are in a job, you are serving somebody. So because you are serving somebody, you have to behave to the likes and fancies of that employer. You cannot dictate terms while at employment. So that's the first thing that you people need to understand. You will have to adjust, you will have to acclimatize to the circumstances around you, and learn to bear those basic hardships while at work. So learn to stay calm. That's number one. Number two, learn to love your job and try to put in your best while at work. Also, I advise all these corporate office goers that see your work as a journey which you need to complete over a lifetime. Most of us try to see it as a destination which I need to attain overnight. I want to become the boss overnight. I want to attain that chair overnight. Arey Baba, life may you have to go slow. You have to enjoy your life. You have to enjoy that professional journey. Everything is not meant to come overnight. Everything is not going to come overnight. In a career spanning 30 to 35 years, all of us are going to work 30 to 35 years of our life. In 30 to 35 years, one year 1 year or 2 years here and there is not going to make any difference whatsoever to your life in the larger scheme of things. एक साल promotion नहीं मिला, दिल पे मत लो. Take life easy, take it as it comes, and you will definitely get what you deserve when it is destined for you. Learn to put in your best, love your job, and don't happen too much to those negative things which are happening around you. The third advice which I give to office goers is seeking peer support. While at work, in your friend circle, within office as also outside office, you should have people who are like your support system. Most and peers work very well in this particular situation. People who are floating in the same boat as you are floating, so those people have understanding of your problems. Try to build networks with them and ensure that you are their support system when they need your help, and they are your support system when you need their help. So it's like you scratch my back when I need you, and I scratch your back when you need me. Have a strong peer network, people in whom you can confide, people in whom you can share your office related problems, and trust me, take my words, you will find a lot of support in them. So building a good peer network of trustworthy people around you is also of paramount importance when you are working or doing a job. Next, seek counseling help or seek psychiatric support whenever the water goes above your head. The moment you know or realize that things are going wrong or they are not going in the direction in which they should, and you are not able to bear the stress, immediately ensure that you are seeking requisite help either from a counselor or from a psychiatrist, or both as the case may be. And last but not the least, very important to have a healthy lifestyle. So regularly do yoga, exercises, meditation, and that will give you calm, that will give you peace. So in a nutshell, for office goers, my suggestions would be: learn to stay calm and accept the reality that you are in a job and you will have to make compromises. 2, love your job. Don't take those loss of promotions or those minor issues at work to heart. In the larger scheme of life, 1 or 2 years here and there does not make much of a difference. Make your professional life a beautiful journey rather than seeing it as a destination which you need to attain or achieve as soon as possible in your life. The moment you make it a journey and enjoy that journey, everything automatically will fall in place as a natural corollary. Next, you should try and build a strong peer network. Also seek counseling and psychiatric help whenever in trouble and when you think things are going beyond your control. And last but not the least, maintaining a healthy lifestyle through yoga, meditation, and exercises. Next, coming to my third category of clients, which is housewives. So housewives, again, most of the housewives of today are all well educated, well bred people, and unfortunately, because of family commitments, most of them had to take a step back and forego on their professional career and ensure that they are taking care of the home and children. So the problem typically these educated housewives face and they come to me for is excessive boredom and frustration because of sitting at home. And generally when they are young, when their kids are small, they don't realize the frustration because they are busy with their kids, with their work. Suddenly when the kids enter into that teenage, and when that housewife is around 40, in that age bracket of 40 to 50, now suddenly, because the kids have become teenagers and they don't need parental support as much as they needed earlier, now there is a vacuum in the life of these housewives, and that's where they start getting into depression. Most often this also coincides with their menopause, and that only adds fuel to fire. So housewives, again, I have seen a steady pick in the number of clients, counseling clients that I get, and most of them are either a victim of frustration or boredom caused in that the mid-age crisis, as I typically call it, the crisis which people face when they are between 40 to 50 years. And many a times, in fact, I've seen some extreme cases where there is extreme jealousy, where a wife is jealous of her husband's success because, let's say, both of them are chartered accountants and the husband is a successful, he continued his journey and he became successful in his work, and the wife was equally competent, equally good, but she gave up on her career. And now she realizes, oh gosh, my husband has progressed so much in life. Had I worked, I would also have been in that particular position, I would also have that kind of success as he has attained in his life. So these kind of things often crop up, these kind of emotions often crop up, and again these things they can't discuss at home. They don't have a system, anybody with whom they can really share this, and there they again seek counselor support. So my advice, and typically the kind of diseases which I see in these housewives is depression, anxiety, panic attacks, and in some cases, extreme cases, things like psychosis and schizophrenia also. So my advice to all these housewives or educated housewives who are now facing that mid-age crisis and who feel low or who feel depressed is that learn to be close with your family. Your family is your support system. You don't need to be jealous of your husband, or you don't need to feel frustrated about the fact that now you are unemployed because your kids have grown up or you don't have sufficient work. So build a bridge with your family. Learn to keep yourself occupied. If you have an interest in life, let's say you were good in dancing, or you were good in painting, or you were good in any form of art, it may be a good time for you to rediscover, reinvent yourself. Once you are done with your kids, responsibility of your kids, and now you suddenly there is a vacuum and you just don't know what to do. So learn to build a strong relationship equation with your kids and family and your husband, and try to reignite some passion within you to keep yourself occupied. Also, never have that guilt or regret that you left a flourishing career for the sake of your children. Please note, please understand that your children are what they are because they got your guidance, because they got your support. You did something which your husband could not do. You built your children, you built the lives of your children, you built the careers of your children, you made them, you gave them good culture, you gave them good teachings, you kept an eye on them in their susceptible age. So what you have done is second to none. Nobody could have done that in your place. So there is no regret about you not having been successful in the professional arena. And also, again, it is never too late. You may just, I see so many of my clients, housewives, who have started their career at the age of 42 or 43. They have started from scratch and done so well in their careers thereafter. So sky is the limit, honestly, for a person who's keen, who's passionate. Rather than trying to find problems or troubles in your life, work towards solutions. Try to figure out what is given in your life, sit down, do a SWOT analysis of yourself, see your circumstances, and try to work towards a solution to your problem. So not having that guilt is very, very important. I advise all these housewives, this is a common advice I give to most of them. Also, it's very important for you to ensure that you are not letting that lava grow within you. Most of these mental diseases are like a volcanic eruption. There's a lot of lava which is growing constantly within for several years, and suddenly one fine morning the lid blows off and there is a volcanic eruption. So if you have a problem, if you have a trouble, speak. Learn to share it with your loved ones, with your husband, with your kids. If need be, seek counselor support, seek professional guidance, but vent out your problems. If you are not good enough or you don't have a solution to your problem, seek external support and get it resolved, but let not that lava grow within you, resulting in a volcanic eruption one fine morning. And last but not the least, the standard advice of doing regular yoga, meditation and exercises to keep your mind and body healthy. So that's the advice I typically give to housewives. Last, coming to children. Children is a very, very common area of counseling nowadays. In fact, majority of my clients are children. Sad but true. And children today are the kind of problems we see in children is very, very unique, and these have all surfaced in the last 10 to 15 years. In fact, let us accept this reality that majority of the families today in India are dysfunctional to some extent. There is some kind of trouble, some kind of ashanti, some kind of problem which is always there in most of the households, and this always has a very bad impact on the minds of children. So the children whom I come across for counseling are generally children who have had a difficult childhood, or they have faced fighting, they have seen parents fight in their childhood. They are they are children of divorced parents. So these kind of kids, typically in those early years of their life, when they are seeing so many hardships, it has a very bad impact on them. And then at a later stage in life, they suffer from psychiatric troubles and need to seek help. Also, many of these children today whom I come across are subjected to abuse during their childhood. Physical abuse, mental abuse, physical abuse from loved ones, people who are near and dear ones, mental abuse sometimes from their own parents, abusive parents, alcoholic parents. Similarly, at school, I get so many complaints of kids who have gone into a shell because teachers in school are not handling them well, or there is a lot of ragging and leg pulling which is happening in school from their peer network, from the other students in the class. So those kind of students also I see, children I see coming to me for counseling. And also one more problem which I see, it's not a problem per se, it's the way we are living today. Children are growing much faster than their age. So today I have a 13-year-old kid, a son, and if I see his maturity levels, his awareness levels, maybe as a 21-year-old I did not have that kind of maturity, or I did not have that kind of awareness which he has as a 13-year-old. That's thanks to technology. Technology has educated them and given them information about things way before their age. So they are growing very fast. They are a different kind of pedigree of Homo sapiens sapien, a pedigree much different from my generation or the generation before me. So they are growing very fast. They are having very kind of clear exposure to technology. They are aware of most of the things as adults are. So they are seeing a childhood which is very different and unique, and which has never been seen before this, thanks to technology. In fact, sometimes I feel that we are actually living in a mad world. We as parents have so much of expectations out of our children. I had a case a few days back of a parent who comes to me and asks me that I want to shift my child to Kota. And this poor child, he was 10 years old, class 5. So I asked him, why do you want to take him to Kota? He said, Kota, I want to make him join an institute which will groom him for IIT. I said, oh gosh, he's in class 5, IIT entrance is in class 12. After class 12, you want to make him study for IIT for the next 8 years? And he was very serious. He was ready to give up on his career and stay with his child in Kota, so that he could be taking the coaching in those coaching classes in Kota, and they start as early as class 4 or class 5. What are we achieving by doing all these things? In fact, these kind of kids, by the time they actually reach class 12, they'll be completely fagged out. If you are making them do things which they should actually be doing as what they should be doing as a 15 or a 16-year-old, you are making them do when they are a 9 or a 10-year-old. How do you think they are going to survive normally with a normal mindset or with a normal mental framework? They are bound to suffer. So today, unfortunately, we as parents also somewhere are using our kids as tools of experiment. We want to achieve through them everything which we as parents have not been able to achieve in our life, and that's something which is really wrong. Let your clients live their childhood. Let them enjoy their childhood. Anyways, technology has taken up a lot of their childhood. The screen time which they have has reduced their physical activities, their pursuit of their artistic pursuits have all gone for a toss, thanks to the digital drug called mobile or tablet or YouTube, stuff like YouTube, which we have kind of gifted them with. These are all dopamine spikers. They do the same effect to the brain as what drugs do. Unfortunately for drugs, there is a ban. Physical consumption of drugs is banned in the country, but for a digital drug, a dopamine booster in the form of a mobile phone or a screen, there is no age. Kids as old as 3 years, 4 years old are being given these drugs in their hands. So things are really grim on the children front. In fact, two common kind of disorders which I see in kids very often is screen addiction, and second is a disease called ADHD. So it's called attention deficit hyperactivity disease or hyperactivity syndrome. So kids are not able to focus or concentrate for a long time, and that's ADHD. This is again on the rise of late. It was there always, but it was generally not seen too much. but current generation, a lot of kids, at least 20 to 30% kids in India are ADHD prone. Of course, a lot of doctors do not see ADHD as a psychiatric disorder. It's treated as a kind of mental framework. But yes, nonetheless, psychiatrists do prescribe medication for ADHD. ADHD kids are not able to focus on their studies. They are constantly fidgeting with things. They don't have their mind focused on something. So let's say they are reading a book for 2-3 minutes. They'll read the book and immediately they'll move to something else. They'll start flipping pages, or they'll go and wash their hand. They'll try to break the chain. They are not able to concentrate for long duration. So this is again a very common disease which we are seeing in children, and they have to be sent for medication whenever we see anything like this. So for my advice for children specifically is that it's very important for parents to ensure that they are reducing screen time of their children, reduce the screen exposure to the lowest, give them screen exposure only when necessary. As parents, it's your duty to monitor the amount of time your children are actually playing around with gadgets. Second, encourage your children to take up physical activities like drawing, dancing. If they have an inclination to a sport, ensure that you are supporting them and helping them take that interest to the next level. Physical activities are equally important for a well developed mind and body as the studies which they are otherwise doing. So very, very important to keep them engaged in their physical pursuits, making them do physical activities. Also, as parents, it's very important for you to probe regularly and find out from your children whether they are facing any problem. Do they have a secret tormentor? Hi friends, I'm sorry I got dropped off. There was a connectivity issue, so I just continue from where I last left. So I was talking about children, and I was talking about the submissive nature of children. Nowadays children are of a submissive nature. They don't share freely, they don't open up very easily and share their problems. So very important as parents to be of a probing nature and ensure we are constantly talking to our children and ensuring that they are opening up with whatever troubles, whatever problems they are facing in their day-to-day life. Very, very important for you to do that audit at regular intervals and solve your kids' problems if you see any trouble that they are faced with. Also, it is very important, nowadays kids are growing faster than usual, so they also expect that you treat them like adults. In fact, I call my children, rather than calling them children or kids, I call them young adults. So treat them with dignity, treat them with respect, and the best way to get the best out of them or make them responsible is to give them authority. So many parents often have this complaint that my children are not studying properly, or they have to be constantly nagged around for studying, and they will constantly keep on criticizing their children, cribbing and saying, "Tujhe to kuch nahi aata, tu padhai nahi karta, padhai kar, otherwise you will fail in your exams." They kind of keep on passing these negative digs at their children all the time. Here is where you can change your communication, your mindset, and get the best out of your children. So when my son does not study for a particular subject, rather than telling him that you are not studying or you are good for nothing, I tell him that I have left this study, this particular subject ka study fully to you. I have given you the responsibility for this subject this particular year, and it's for you to ensure now that you are doing well. You are studying well and scoring good marks. If you score good marks in this subject studying on your own, it is your credit. If you score bad marks in this subject, it is your loss. The moment you make them responsible for what they are doing, suddenly that authority which is coming into their life will bring out the best in them. Even the worst of students, the most non-diligent students will also kind of tighten their laces and start studying when you thrust them with that responsibility or authority. So change your communication, change your attitude towards them, treat them like young adults and give them that responsibility, give them that authority, make them realize, make them understand that they are accountable or they are responsible for their life and for what they are doing or what they are achieving or what they are failing in, and automatically you will bring out the best in them. So handling them, tackling them is a different ball game in modern times. The next thing that I advise to all the parents who come with their kids is engage your children in brain stimulating activities. It's very important. So if your child is showing inclination towards coding, let's say basic coding, or maybe robotics. So the moment he is in class 6 or class 7, try and introduce him to these subjects. Nowadays there are lots of coding courses, robotics courses, a lot of these creative kind of things which have come up and which helps in brain stimulation. So very important to help your kids channelize their energies in the right direction in brain stimulating activities. It not only gives them a sense of achievement, it also somewhere makes them better students and more focused. So I remember my son, he's into robotics and he's done a lot of courses now, and what he was before he started doing robotics, the kind of confidence levels he had before he got into robotics, and now what I see him, they are two different personalities, completely two different people. He conducts himself so well, he's not scared, he's not afraid, he's just he's in a different league altogether now after getting into robotics and coding. So yes, getting them into these kind of engaging stuff, brain stimulating stuff early on in life also really helps. And last but not the least, you should encourage your kids to be doing yoga and meditation. Very important, including physical activities or physical exercises. All of this put together will help you ensure that you are giving the right grooming to your children. And yes, when in need, do not be skeptical about seeking professional help. Go to a counselor, go to a psychiatrist if you see major problems in your children. Seek the right help at the right time. There is no stigma, there is no taboo associated with seeking help. It will only help you give your child a good life, a good future. The next question which I want to answer is this. Often a lot of people ask me on different forums or different platforms is, Surojit, why is mental health or treatment for mental disorder still seen as a stigma in our country? Why do people not visit a counselor or a psychiatrist when they need help? So well, let me be blunt and honest here, no shame in admitting that I don't have an answer to this question. I don't know why our country is like this, why people in our country think so. We need to understand that a psychiatric disorder or a mental disorder is a mere hormonal imbalance in our body. Just as a mental disorder is a hormonal imbalance in our body, so is diabetes. When you have insulin imbalance in your body, your pancreas is not sufficiently secreting insulin, which is a hormone in your body, you get diabetes. Do you feel ashamed of diabetes? Do you feel ashamed to tell people that you have diabetes or seek medication for it? The answer is a big fat no. Just as you don't feel ashamed of a diabetes or thyroid, which are hormonal diseases, and you seek medication for the same is the case with a psychiatric disorder or a mental disorder. Let's accept the reality that we are living in a time where stress and difficulties in life are like never before. We are facing excessive stress, excessive competition, and in this kind of situation, all of us being humans, it is very natural for us to have those slips. We may have those hormonal imbalances in our body. At times our brain may not be able to take the pressure or take the stress, and there could be a psychiatric disorder, just a hormonal imbalance. There is no shame or no stigma or no taboo associated with seeking the help of a counselor or seeking the help of a psychiatrist. In fact, it's the other way. If you have a mental disorder which is brimming within you and you let it remain the way it is, the disease is only going to grow with efflux of time. Very rarely will you have that miraculous recovery where you ignore a mental disorder and you get healed with time. It sounds good to hear this, but it does not happen in reality. The disease will only grow with time. And unfortunately, the problem is people in India go to a psychiatrist or go to a counselor when the disease has already peaked, when the disease has already become chronic and has reached a stage from where recovery then becomes very difficult. So one has to understand that a mental disorder or a mental disease is not a social stigma. It's just like any other disease, and the moment I exhibit symptoms of a mental disorder or a mental problem, I need to immediately visit a counselor or a psychiatrist, seek medication. Trust me, take my words, if it is at the onset, if you are nipping the bud, if we are taking recourse to counseling and medical help right at the inception, in a matter of few months we can be completely healed of a mental disorder. But if we let it grow in our body, it's only going to move from one stage to another, and then for all you know, if you go too late to a doctor, you may end up taking medication all your life. You may have reached a stage from where recovery will become, complete recovery will become really difficult. So treatment of a mental illness depends completely on when you address it. So the moment there is a problem, you should be immediately nipping the bud, going to a doctor, going to a counselor, and ensuring that it gets duly addressed. It's high time that India realizes this. We are a largely populated country. We have seen so many cases of suicide in front of us. Of course, Sushant Singh Rajput has now become a trigger, but there are thousands of people committing suicide every single day in India. Sushant was a celebrity. He came into the limelight. We felt bad for him. I feel bad for all those thousands of people who are committing suicide every single day in India. It would not have happened had they sought help at the right time, had they taken help at the right time. So that mindset, that attitude has to change. In countries like US, if I have to share statistics with you, 18% of urban India is mentally ill or potentially mentally ill. 40% of urban US is mentally ill or potentially mentally ill. The incidence of mental disorders in US is much larger than it is in India, but the attitude there is very different. People go to therapists at the right time. There it's not seen as a stigma, or it's not seen as a taboo, and that's why recovery is very quick. And it's also, mental illness is also handled with a different level of dignity and respect in those countries. Nobody ridicules it, nobody laughs about it, or nobody is scared of taking help when suffered with a mental illness. So that's why in the West, while this is a problem as grave as in India, or maybe possibly even larger, there the recovery rate is much faster, and because of the understanding level of the people. So high time India also realizes this, learns from this incident, and the next time we are faced with a problem, we should take recourse, we should take medical help immediately. The next question which I want to quickly answer is, what are the symptoms of a mental ailment, and are all mental ailments fully curable? So symptoms, typically there could be varied symptoms of a mental ailment, but if I have to define it in one line, I would say any abnormality that you see in your behavior or in the way you are conducting yourself over a period of time would possibly be a precursor to a mental ailment. So for example, that excessive feeling of guilt or anxiety, or regular bouts of panic attacks suddenly in your life, or maybe that constant feeling of low, feeling depressed suddenly in your life. And generally all these mental illnesses are linked to a trigger. You would probably have had a jhatka or a jolt in your life, which would have been the trigger, and which would have kind of caused you to get into that depressive stage or that particular mental illness. So the moment there is this trigger, you need to capture it, and for different people the triggers could be different. It could be anything like anxiety, that feeling of low, the feeling of depression, panic attacks, not being able to control sensitivity, sudden surge in sensitivity in your nature, you crying for anything and everything that is happening around you, or lack of ability to cope up with stress or pressure, which other normal people are very easily coping up with, but you are not able to cope up with that. These are all early symptoms of a mental disorder. And if you see any of these symptoms for more than a month at a trot, then you should immediately seek medical help. Some of the other symptoms which people see are lack of sleep, or some people also kind of suffer from hallucination. So you would have seen this movie called Lage Raho Munna Bhai, where Sanjay Dutt used to hallucinate about Mahatma Gandhi. He used to see Mahatma Gandhi, whereas Mahatma Gandhi did not actually exist. So hallucination typically means seeing things or listening to things which don't exist. So or maybe another very common symptom of a psychiatric disorder is bouts of doubting tendency, having doubting tendency, suddenly doubting people around you, having suspicion about people around you while there is no reason for you to have suspicion. These are all early symptoms of a psychiatric disorder. Whenever you see any of them within you, it's time for you to talk to people around you, people whom you trust, and seek counselor support or seek psychiatric help as may be necessary. The best thing to do, typically there are two kinds of people you could go to when you are suffering from a psychiatric or you suspect that you are suffering from a psychiatric trouble. One is a counselor or a psychologist. A counselor or a psychologist is a person who guides you, who counsels you and shares with you everything that you need to do and understand to come out of that particular problem. And the other person whom you go to is a psychiatrist. A psychiatrist is an MD doctor, a specialist in psychiatry, who can prescribe you medicines, chemicals for the imbalance, hormonal imbalance in your brain. So you should be visiting both of them. You should be visiting a psychiatrist also, a good psychiatrist, a psychiatrist who's empathetic, and a psychiatrist who gives you good time. I get a lot of complaints nowadays from my clients that psychiatrists are just not ready to listen. They give you 10 to 15 minutes of hearing and they will prescribe you drugs and off you go. So learn to choose a psychiatrist who's good, who's empathetic, and who will give you time, who will listen to your case peacefully. Nowadays you have the Practo app where you can kind of search and get information about good psychiatrists, read their reviews and then visit them, and parallelly also visit a good counselor. Again, there are thousands of counselors in the country. Not every counselor is good. Yes, like every other profession, there are good counselors, there are average counselors, there are bad counselors. Look at the reviews of the counselor first, see how good he is before you are visiting one. I also personally am a counselor. I operate under the brand name Karma Cosmos Counseling and Life Coaching Services. If you need any help or support, you can always reach out to me on my website www.karmacosmos.com. It has all my contact details and I'm more than happy to help you. So it's important for us to pick up the early signs of a mental disorder and get it corrected immediately by visiting a counselor and a psychiatrist parallelly. Also, to answer the question whether all psychiatric troubles are curable or not, yes, 99% of them are fully curable, but cure depends on when you are seeking redressal. If you are going to the doctor at the last stage, for all you know, you may have to take medication all your life. If you have let the disease grow in your body and then you are visiting the doctor. So nipping the bud becomes very important. The moment you show early symptoms, immediately visit the doctor and you will find a sure shot, and a counselor, and you'll find a sure shot remedy to your problem. Tackling the problem becomes very easy at inception and it becomes exponentially difficult as it keeps on growing within your body and if it goes unnoticed. So very important for you to visit the doctor at the right time. And yes, most of the psychiatric disorders are curable. Also, time frame, there is no time frame for how much time you will need counseling or you will need medication. It could last, it could be anywhere between 2 months to 20 years to maybe a lifetime. So how much time you will have to take medicines and counseling, it all depends on the case. It is case to case specific and nobody can put a finger and say that this is the benchmark period for recovery. But yes, recovery is certain if you nip the bud. If you go to the counselor and if you go to the doctor right at the inception of the trouble, they will very easily help you wade through the problem. And the last question which I want to quickly answer, I saw this question on the screen some time back, that if not suicide, then what? People who are troubled or people who are stressed, for them, let's say people who have suffered a very kind of earth-shattering jolt in their life, for them suicide is the easiest escape path. So if not suicide, then what? So to that person who's raised this question, let me answer this question blunt and flat, that suicide to me is not an option. If somebody is contemplating suicide as an option, that person needs immediate mental rehabilitation. That person is mentally sick and hence he is contemplating suicide as an option. So number one, let's get this right and straight. Suicide is not an option. Please get this loud and clear, that there is no trouble or no difficulty or no problem is in life which is larger than life or which is more important than your life. Every trouble, every problem is lesser in value than our life. We can never barter something as precious as our life for a trouble in our life. So if you are thinking of doing that, in the first place, you are mentally ill and you need mental rehabilitation. Now, having said this, whenever that suicidal thought comes in or that suicidal instinct comes in, immediately visit a counselor, immediately visit a doctor and seek that you are taking and ensure that you are seeking necessary medication and help so that you overcome the suicidal thoughts. And for people who are faced with troubles in life, we all are faced with difficulties and troubles in life. I have had hundreds and thousands of challenges in my life and I keep on facing them every day in my life. Like me, everybody else in life is facing challenges, facing troubles. Every person, right from Narendra Modi, who is the Prime Minister of India, to the poorest man in India, has his own set of challenges, has his own set of troubles, and whenever we are faced, yes, some troubles may be big, some troubles may be small. Most of the troubles are within our control. We can solve them, we can find a solution for them. Some of the troubles are really big. Now, whenever you are faced with big troubles, that is when you tend to lose your mental faculties, you tend to get into depression, you get those suicidal instincts and get into a psychiatric trouble or a psychiatric problem. Whenever you are faced with a big problem or big trouble in life, let's get this right. That problem it will only have two possible outcomes. Either that problem has a solution to it, and if it has a solution, work towards the solution and solve your problem, or that problem is unsolvable, that problem does not have a solution. So say for example, you are terribly depressed because you have lost a loved one. Your mother or father has just died in an untimely manner, and that is why you are depressed. Now this person who has been lost, who has gone from your life, cannot be brought back. So this is an unsolvable problem. So when you are faced with an unsolvable problem, the only choice and option you have is to buy peace with that problem, make that problem a part of your life, and just live life accepting it as a reality. We have the case of so many people. I remember this girl Arunima, who lost her legs in an accident, and with no legs, that girl went ahead and scaled Mount Everest. She decided that lack of legs, the absence of legs in her body, is not going to rob her of her passion to do something really big in life. And with artificial legs, that girl went ahead and scaled Mount Everest. You and I, with two legs on our body, may find it a tough ask. We may spend half our life if we have to scale the Mount Everest. And that girl, without legs on her body, she ended up scaling the Mount Everest. So the point is, nothing is unreconcilable in life. It's about how we perceive it, how we look at it. No loss in life is unreconcilable. Either you can make do the loss, or if the loss is irreparable, just live with the loss, just accept it. You have lost a loved one, okay, this was your karmic destiny. That person was destined to be with you for a particular time in your life. They were with you for that much time. Now that journey is over. That's why that person has parted ways with you. Greet that person, bid that person adieu with a smile on your face. In fact, he's luckier than you. He's already passed his life on earth, and he's now on his holy journey to heaven. He's going to spend a good time there. He's luckier than you. You are still stuck in this wretched world called the earth, and he's moved ahead in life. So be happy about him. Celebrate his death rather than being sad about what has happened. In fact, the Shraddh ceremony, which we do on the 12th day in the Hindu tradition, is actually a celebration. It's when you feed people. Why do you feed people? You are celebrating the journey of that person, that Jivatma, from earth to his heavenly abode. You give the party, you throw the party, you feed people, because you are celebrating his journey to heaven. So death is also meant to be taken in the right perspective. There is nothing really which is unreconcilable in life. So if you have a big problem, either take the bull by the horns and solve your problem, or if you can't solve the problem, make it a part of your life and live with it, buy peace with it, and lead a beautiful life. We are all plagued with problems. We are all plagued with troubles. Every person on earth has his own set of problems. Nobody is leading a problem immune life. So take it as a part and parcel of your life. Lead your life happily. Life is meant to be a beautiful journey. It's a wonderful gift we all of us have been blessed with, and God or the Creator has not given us the right to take life before it is legally or officially or karmically destined to be snatched by God. If you are taking away your life through suicide, you are committing the biggest possible sin on earth. In Bhagavad Gita, I end this particular live chat with this famous saying from the Bhagavad Gita. Lord Krishna, the Param Jnani in Bhagavad Gita, has said, suicide is the biggest sin on earth. Murdering somebody else comes second. You take somebody else's life, karmically that sin is second on the list. Murdering self, killing self, is the biggest sin on earth. So you may you may think that you will run away from your problems by taking your life, but let me assure you, you have a confirmed seat in hell once you have ended your life, once you have taken your life through suicide. So just remove this wretched word from your dictionary. Never again bring this wretched word in your dictionary. If you are in trouble, Seek help, go to a counselor, go to a psychiatrist, and all your problems will be put to rest. There is nothing which a man cannot conquer or which a man cannot fight through with his mind and with his belief system. It's about adjusting, it's about accepting all the realities of life, enjoying this beautiful journey called life, which God has beautifully kind of gifted each one of us. Every person is a unique creation of God. Every life is a unique creation of God. We are meant to do complete our karmic journey on earth. That's why we are here, and we can't abort it unnaturally by taking our life. So when in trouble, yes, there are people like me sitting to help you. Please come to us, please go to a counselor, please go to a psychiatrist. Don't ever think of doing something stupid. When you do something stupid, you will go on your journey, but you will ruin all those other lives who are dependent on you on earth, all your loved ones. They shall die every single day crying for you, crying for your death after you are gone. So not for your own sake, but for your loved one's sake, never ever think of this bloody word called suicide ever again. Shame on this particular concept, shame on this particular word. Life is meant to be beautiful. Life is a beautiful journey. Life is a gift of God. Learn to respect that gift of God. With that, I would like to end this Facebook chat and live chat, and I thank each one of you for having joined this chat and for your kind support. I see a lot of people who are live at this moment. Thank you so much. Before I kind of wrap up, one last time, anybody who has any questions, if you're just putting a few questions right away, I can address them. If not, then I will close this chat. So anybody who has any questions, please quickly, you can put it across. I would love to answer it. Anybody who has a specific question? Okay, so that's time for me to say thank you and bye to all of you. Thank you so much for being a patient audience. I hope I have made a difference to your life through this chat. If at all, at any point of time, you need support, you need help. Okay, I'm getting a few questions, just one second. Can lack of motivation be a sign? Yes, lack of motivation could also be a sign if it is unnatural. If there is a sudden fall, dip in your motivational levels, then it could be a sign of a mental disorder. So better to seek support if it is happening for a long duration. Your motivational level should be like that of a normal human being. So if there is a sudden drop, yes, you should kind of tick the box and ensure that you are going to a counselor and seeking help from him. The next question I have is how to find whether a person is into depression. So I think I answered that question. There are a lot of signals or symptoms of depression. It could be anything like anxiety or lack of confidence in self, lack of motivation, lack of that urge to achieve something in life which all normal people have, lack of ability to cope up with stress, or if you are hallucinating, or if you are having that doubting tendency, or you are having that sudden feeling of low or depression. So there are various signals of depression. The moment there is anything unnatural happening in your mind and body for a long time, something unnatural in the mental faculties, anything which is not like you in terms of your thinking and your thought process for more than a month, and that could be an early sign of depression or a mental disorder. So you need to seek support for the same. And the last question which I have is, if somebody feels very frustrated, what's the best way to get out of it? If you are feeling frustrated, the best way to get out of it is to watch people who are not as lucky as you. Whenever I feel I am poor, I just go down and watch the beggars who are sitting on the road. Whenever I feel jealous about somebody else, I just look 2 steps below, people who are behind me, people who are not as lucky as me. And then I look north and I thank God and I say, thank you God, thank you so much. I am much better off than 90% of India. So what if I am not in the top 10% of India? I am better off than 90% others. So count your blessings. Be happy with what you have. Frustrations are bound to happen in life. Whenever there is something which is causing a frustration in your life, ensure that you are working on that problem and finding a solution to it. Sit down, draw take a piece of paper, write down your problem, write down the possible solutions, whatever you think comes to your mind, and just kind of take that ahead and try to solve your problem. So attitude of gratitude, counting your blessings when you are frustrated, and trying to work towards your problems. These are the two solutions which I can give from my side whenever you are faced with frustration. Somebody is asking me, are you available for online counseling? Absolutely. The virtual world is now the way to live for the next 2 years. So I am available all across the world through the virtual platform to give counseling services. Yes, so I think that marks the end of all the questions which came up. I have tried and answered all of them. One last time, any other questions? Anybody else who wants to ask something? I am happy to answer. Will you be doing another session soon? Yes, on public demand, definitely yes. I would love to come live as many times as you people want me to. My goal is to share knowledge. Honestly looked at, let me be very, very clear here. As a person, I am financially secure. I don't do counseling to make money. The goal is to help people. I've been on a journey of 20 long years where I've been a researcher. I had the privilege of, in this journey of mine of research, I had the privilege of reading through the Vedas, the 36 Purans, the Bible, the Gita, the Quran, the Guru Granth Sahib. I did a lot of research around hypnosis. I trained under a very learned person known as Dr. Brian Weiss, who's considered as one of the best hypnotherapists in the world. So I have been on a mission. I've been a researcher who's been scouting for the wealth of knowledge which exists. And honestly, the more I read, the humbler I felt, the shallower I felt. When you read, you start realizing how small a drop in the ocean you are. So Karma Cosmos is nothing but a platform which I have built to help people, because there is a lot of pain in the world, and I don't think money when I am doing this. So yes, I'll be doing a lot of more such live sessions in future, and I am there for online counseling. I'm there to guide people. I'm there to give free services for people who can't afford my services. Money is the last thing which comes in my way. Any other questions? Okay, so I have none of them. Also, as I part, one last thing which I wanted to share with all of you, because children, I spoke about children in the course of my chat. Children is one area which I am regularly tackling nowadays. As I said, maximum number of clients which I have now are children. They are facing problems like never before. Many of you listening to this are parents or would be parents in future. So be very, very mindful, very, very careful of your children. They are a different generation. The kind of upbringing you people have had as children and the kind of upbringing you are going to give to them is going to be very different. Learn to see your children as young adults once they are 9-10 years old. Treat them as your friends. Be probing and ensure that they have confidence in you. They have comfort in sharing anything and everything which comes to their mind in you. Also be of that probing nature, because nowadays children are very submissive. If they are being harassed, if they have problem, there are so many cases I get of social networking related stalking. Children are stalked on social media. They are humiliated. They are embarrassed. They are body shamed. I'll just share one case which I received a few days back of a 7th standard girl. She was barely 12 years old, and she was being body shamed for having hair on her body. And you know what? She picked up her father's razor and she shaved off all the hair on her body, including the hair on her face. And her parents were in so much of stress. They came crying to me, and that I asked that girl what made her do that. She said she was so frustrated with all the children calling her by names and kind of body shaming her, that one fine morning she just picked up her father's razor and did what she did. So children nowadays are extremely sensitive. They are a different breed in themselves. So very, very important for you to be very empathetic, be patient as parents, give time to your children, and ensuring that you are bringing out everything that is there in their mind. Very, very important. So children's upbringing is a key area which all of us should be focusing on. We may be busy with our work. We are all busy professionals, but at least 1 hour a day, 30 minutes a day as a parent, you have to ensure that you are giving to your kids. You can't give that bahana. Like you have time for your dinner, you have time for your bath, you have time for all the routine rituals of your life. You need to have 30 to 45 minutes every single day for your children. Very, very important. One last time, any questions? Friends, feel free to ask. I just said some time back Mental disorder should not, or psychiatric disorder should not be seen as a social stigma. No shame in asking questions, no shame in getting it addressed at the right time. It's just a mere hormonal imbalance, no big deal. There are so many hormonal imbalances which lead to different kinds of diseases. So don't feel scared of asking a question, even if you are being watched. Okay, so that takes us to the end of this Facebook live chat. Thank you so much. I'll keep you people intimated about my next live chat, and I'll throw open the topic as well for all of you. Thank you so much for being a patient audience. Love you all. May God bless you all, and may all of you have a wonderful life ahead. Thank you so much. Good night to all of you.